Now, the wizard, the market research wizard, is basically it's all the market research techniques that we here at Worldwide Brands learned over the years, and we boiled them down into a software program. And, being a former systems guy myself, I tend to believe that just about any kind of informational process can be programmed, So that's what market research is. It's just a process of gathering information. And the information is gathered from the search engines and from eBay. And now we used to spend literally, hours or days, depending on the product, analyzing a new product that we might think about selling, because we do have online retail stores. And now that we've rolled our entire market research process into software, we simply type 3 keywords about a product into the wizard. And if we were doing like Nike shoes, Nike running shoes, for example,
okay,
we'd type one word under brand name, which would be Nike. There's 3 boxes in the wizard under Nike, and or under brand name would be Nike. One word for product type, which would be running, and one word for category, which would be shoes. And then we hit the go button, and the wizard just does all that research process that we used to do manually in literally minutes. And I'll explain that in a minute, but here's some of the information that it gathers. And this is what, if you're doing product research on your own manually, which is great, fine. I'm not saying you've got to come running over and buy this thing from us. I mean, here's what you need to look for in market research. First, you need to know the demand. There's not much point in trying to sell a product on the Internet if nobody's interested in buying it. So, one of the things that the wizard does is find out how many people have recently used the same search terms on the Internet while they're looking for information about products to buy. That's called demand. If there's no demand for the product, it's not a good idea to try to sell it. But if the demand's high, it might be a good idea to sell it, depending on how much competition there is. So next, of course, you want to find out what your competition in that market is. Now, many times when we talked about this, even though a product is a hot seller on the Internet, it might not be a good idea to try to sell it yourself because there may already be too many people trying to do the same thing. So when you do a search in the wizard, one of the things it finds out is how many other people are trying to sell the same product on the Internet that you're thinking about selling. And that's competition. If there's a great deal of competition, then you end up with a smaller piece of the market, and you sell fewer products and make less money. Bigger problem with competition, again, is something we said earlier, is the cutthroat aspect of it. I mean, when you get a lot of people flooding a market, they undercut each other's prices by pennies here, pennies there. They just keep going back and forth, until the market just bottoms out. It doesn't take long for a market price to get so close to the wholesaler seller cost that there's just no profit margin left.
Right.
Now, the best possible situation, of course, is to have more demand than competition. And another thing you need to research is advertising, and that's what the wizard does next. The people on the Internet who are probably the most serious about selling products are those people who pay for advertising. It looks at that and finds out who's advertising under those keywords that you punched in, and it actually brings the information back into the wizard so you can click on those ads and look at them, and see what your competition is doing with the ads.
Okay.
That's another thing that you need to know. I mean, what your competition is doing as far as advertising. Now, another important factor is eBay auctions, of course. Our company is an eBay-certified software developer, so this is an eBay-certified product. And it gets its eBay information directly from eBay's database. It goes through their application program interface, and it pulls information right from eBay's servers. And it does a detailed search for information on the auctions for the products that you're researching. Finds out how many there are out there, how close they are to closing, how much people are bidding on them. And really the last major thing that we gather when we do market research is general product awareness. You want to know, since the more people are aware that a product exists, the more likely you are to find a market for it. Now, I could go on forever about the wizard, but really the key to it is its algorithm. We take all that information that I just talked about, and we apply an algorithm to it. An algorithm is simply a step of logic, or a series of logical steps. Okay. When we used to do product research by hand, we had a series of steps that we'd go through. First we'd gather all this info, then we applied our own set of rules to it that we invented over the years, and we spent years refining those rules. What they basically do, how we did it was we basically add or subtract points to a product depending on the ranges of results we got in those categories. The ranges of numbers in the categories. So when we were done researching a product, we'd look at the total number of points we assigned to it. If the number was above a certain level, it's a good idea. If it's not above a certain level, it's not a good idea. So when we built the wizard, we built an algorithm that works on that same point system automatically, depending on the results it gets back from its searches. So when you do market research wizard with research with a wizard, you actually get back a graphic display from 0% to 100% that tells you how good a chance the wizard thinks you have of that product being a good seller. People love that.
Time saver and a half.
It really is. We've gotten really great reviews about it. Now, we beta tested this for months, Alan, because we wanted to be sure before we released it, that the algorithm was correct. When you're building something that's going to tell people whether a product's going to sell or not, you better be right. So
right.
We worked with several eBay power sellers, and Sidney Johnston, for example, was a beta tester, and a lot of other successful Internet people we know. And what they did was they actually tested the market research results against the results that they noticed in their own sales, independently.
That's good research.
Well, it worked well. It took us about 3 months refining the algorithm until we got the same kinds of results. But once we released it, it was just, people loved it. We get emails even from people who tell us they're using it for things that we never even thought of. Like people are using it for keyword relevancy searches, and we didn't think of that.
It would certainly be helpful for that, though.
It is. You can export the data from it. You gather your searches, and it saves all your searches. You've got a whole history of all your searches in there by date and time and everything, and product names and whatever. You can export it to Excel spreadsheets or other Microsoft programs. It's a really good tool, and that, like our other products, sells for a one-time fee, and we constantly release upgrades. Literally, sometimes a couple of times a week, because the search engines are always changing their pages. And when the wizard goes out and investigates the search engines, things may have changed. So our programmer is constantly on top of that, and he releases constant upgrades. And every time you open the program, you may see it just do a quick automatic upgrade.
Oh, wow.
So
that's true meaning of the word dynamic.
Yes. We do that with all our stuff. I think it's the best way to go, Alan. The directories have to be dynamic. We've got to be in there every day, updating information and making sure it's correct. A product research tool has got to be, a market research tool has got to be dynamic, because everything changes, day by day in this market,